My name is Daniel, I'm 35, and I've always believed in loyalty and honesty above all else. But nothing could have prepared me for the chaos that unfolded one ordinary Thursday evening. My wife, Emily, and I had been together for 8 years. Our marriage had its ups and downs, but I thought the foundation was solid. We had a son, Ethan, who was 6, and he was the center of our universe. Yet, one small incident with her best friend would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the people I trusted the most. It all began with Claire, Emily's best friend since college. She had always been sharp, outspoken, and protective of Emily, but something about her presence lately felt different. A subtle tension in the air, fleeting glances, and conversations that ended abruptly whenever I entered the room. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to overthinking. But deep down I knew something was off. That Thursday, Emily and I had returned home from a late dinner. I noticed Claire waiting outside, pacing nervously. Normally, she would call before stopping by, but this time she didn't. As soon as she saw me, her expression hardened. She and I had never been particularly close. We were cordial, polite, but tonight her aura was aggressive, defensive even. I confronted her gently, asking what she was doing there unannounced. Claire's eyes flashed with something I couldn't place. Fear, anger, or perhaps guilt. "Daniel," she said, her voice low but firm. "We need to talk. Now." I hesitated, sensing the intensity behind her words. Something in her tone warned me that this conversation would change everything. Inside the house, she refused to meet in the living room. We went to the kitchen, where the overhead light cast sharp shadows across her face. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes fixed on mine. I asked again calmly, "Claire, what's going on? Why are you here? What is this about?" Then it happened. The first sign of friction. A verbal clash sparked almost immediately. Accusations, denials, and defensive statements volleyed back and forth. My patience was tested, but I didn't raise my voice. I had learned that losing control would only obscure the truth. Claire, in her frustration, said things she probably didn't intend to, and in those words I felt the first crack in the story she was trying to hide. Emily, who had been quietly observing from the hallway, finally stepped in. Her expression was guarded, almost fearful. She whispered something to Claire, and Claire froze. That whisper, almost inaudible, held a weight I couldn't yet comprehend. I didn't know it at the time, but those few words would pivot the entire evening, revealing secrets that would shake the very foundation of our marriage. By now, tension had escalated to a point where words alone couldn't resolve it. Every glance, every gesture was loaded. I could feel my heart pounding, my mind racing to anticipate what was coming. It was as if the air itself was charged with anticipation. And then Claire made a misstep. A careless revelation, a word too many, a slip of truth. My instincts, honed over years of handling crises in both business and personal life, kicked in. I started connecting dots I hadn't even realized were there. Every prior incident, every strange behavior now formed a pattern I could no longer ignore. After Claire's careless slip, I could feel the pieces clicking into place. My mind raced, analyzing every encounter, every glance, every vague comment that had seemed insignificant before. The truth was there, hiding in plain sight, and now it was just a matter of connecting the dots. I didn't react immediately. There's a certain power in calm observation. Anger and impulsiveness only cloud judgment. Emily remained unusually quiet, her eyes darting between Claire and me. She avoided my gaze, which only heightened my suspicion. There was a tension in the room that seemed almost tangible, pressing down on us like the weight of unspoken words. I realized then that this was bigger than I had imagined. This wasn't just a minor misunderstanding or a fleeting moment of poor judgment. It was a betrayal carefully concealed, and the ripple effects would touch everyone in the house, especially Ethan. Claire tried to regain control of the conversation, raising her voice, attempting to redirect blame, painting herself as a mediator rather than a participant. But the truth has a way of revealing itself, and her attempts only highlighted the inconsistencies. I remained calm, asking precise questions, watching for micro-expressions and hesitations. Every pause, every vague answer told me more than words ever could. Emily finally whispered the truth. Her voice trembled, barely audible, but the words hit me like a cold wave. "Daniel, it's not what you think. The hesitation, the stammering, it was all confirmation. I had known it deep down, but hearing it whispered, framed in fear and guilt, made the betrayal painfully real. I stepped back, letting the silence fill the room. The weight of what had been revealed settled over us. Claire's defensive posture faltered, and I could see the realization dawn on her as well. There was no hiding anymore. Emily's eyes welled with tears, a mix of fear, shame, and regret. Ethan, playing quietly in the next room, sensed the tension even if he didn't understand it fully. At that moment, I made a decision. This was not a situation for confrontation with anger or public embarrassment. It was a moment for clarity, for exposing the truth in a way that was undeniable and fair. I needed everyone to see the reality, the choices that had been made, and the consequences. The safety of my child, the integrity of my household, and my own peace of mind depended on it. I collected the evidence, messages, phone records, subtle indicators Claire and Emily hadn't considered important. Every interaction from the past weeks now formed a clear picture. The betrayal was no longer abstract. It was tangible, documented, undeniable. I knew I had to act strategically, not impulsively. That evening, I called a few close friends over, under the guise of a casual gathering. I wanted witnesses not to shame Emily, but to ensure accountability and transparency. When they arrived, I calmly laid out the facts, the evidence, and the inconsistencies. Claire and Emily's attempts to explain or deflect only reinforced the reality. Every denial, every excuse, every hesitant glance was another piece of the story falling into place. By the end of the night, the truth was out. Emily could no longer hide, Claire could no longer defend, and I had regained control, not through anger, but through clarity, observation, and careful strategy. The next evening, I arranged a small meeting at our home. I wanted it controlled, deliberate, not out of malice, but to bring the truth to light and restore some sense of order. Claire and Emily arrived, tense, their expressions betraying both fear and defiance. I invited a few close friends who were trustworthy, calm witnesses to what was about to unfold. I began quietly, deliberately. Tonight isn't about punishment. It's about clarity, truth, and accountability. My voice was steady, measured, but every word carried weight. Emily looked down, avoiding my gaze, while Claire shifted uncomfortably. I laid out the evidence I had gathered over the past weeks, messages, patterns, and moments they thought were inconsequential. Each piece was clear, indisputable, and left no room for denial. Emily's defense was weak, hesitant, and fragmented. Every attempt to justify or downplay the situation only highlighted the betrayal. Claire tried to intervene, her voice rising, attempting to defend herself, claiming she didn't know the full extent, but I remained calm, letting the facts speak for themselves. Every inconsistency, every hesitation, every slip only added to the undeniable truth. Then came the moment that would forever change the dynamics of our household. I paused, letting silence hang in the air like a heavy curtain, and spoke directly to Emily. The choices you've made have consequences, not just for you but for Ethan, for me, and for the trust that binds a family together. Her face went pale, tears forming in her eyes, but she said nothing. I turned to our friends, giving them context and clarity. They listened, nodded, and slowly began to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Their reactions weren't of shock alone. They were of validation. Validation for the truth, for the fact that I had approached this not with vengeance, but with deliberate observation, calm reasoning, and undeniable evidence. Emily finally whispered, broken, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to. Her words trailed off into silence. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I focused on Ethan, who had quietly observed from the hallway. I wanted him to feel safe, to know that honesty, courage, and clarity were stronger than betrayal. I knelt, hugged him, and reassured him that his world would be protected. The rest of the night was quiet but decisive. Emily and Claire gathered their things and left. I ensured it was orderly, controlled, and without unnecessary drama. The betrayal had been exposed fully, publicly enough to be undeniable, yet handled with dignity. As I watched them leave, a sense of clarity and liberation settled over me. Betrayal is always painful, but confronting it strategically, calmly, and with evidence restores not just control, it restores peace of mind. That night I realized something crucial. Trust can't be rebuilt over lies, and boundaries must be respected to protect what truly matters. I walked through the now quiet house, Ethan asleep in his bed, and finally exhaled. The past had been confronted, the betrayal revealed, and a new chapter awaited us. One built on honesty, observation, and the courage to act decisively when truth demands it. My life wasn't broken. It was clarified, reshaped, and ready for the future we deserved.